High school always came relatively easy to me. I found it was my place. From being irresponsible in my youth to gaining insight in my potential as I grew older, I flourished. Excellence was a standard, one I typically met with some effort. However, it felt mundane, manifesting a sense of apathy within me. Indifferent to the work I was doing, I felt like I was going through the motions. Nonetheless, I did well, but it was not fulfilling. My sister did MEI for English in Spain and Portugal. It was a common understanding that the Alberta English curriculum was full of subjectivity. From the uniformity of our one-size-fits-all reading comprehension tests to the repetitive nature of our assignments, I too searched for something where I could learn to learn, rather than fit a mold. So I chose to do MEI. The weeks leading up to the departure were the busiest. I spent my free time hopping between friend groups and family to bid my goodbyes. Each part of my day was dedicated to doing my readings. It felt like I was consuming the free part of my summer. It was only then when I realized the gravity of this trip. In measuring the approaching 5 weeks I was about to spend without the regularity of my life, I was ambivalent. I became both worried about my lack of preparation and fear of doing something so distant from my comfort zone. But I had envisioned myself exploring these new places, immersing myself into what I was learning. But before I could process my sudden hesitancy, I was launched into what would now become my summer. The 3 teachers who I met in that airport meeting room soon became more than teachers to me. They were my mentors, answering my incessant questions about the program, trips, and work. Even if that was their job, they did so much more than that. In the cave I was entering, they were not just a light to guide me through, but instead illuminated the precious gems and mysteries within through my experience. The first day in Barcelona, I was introduced to the life I would live 52 times over, an environment I had never been in with 32 other strangers and a story left guided by my own actions. A group of us confused students huddled around a computer screen with 3 optical illusions. It was unfamiliar to me. I had never experienced an approach to learning that focused on context over fact. This established the basis of a new cycle I would go through nearly daily. Confusion into learning, learning through experience, and being left with something more important than the task itself. My allies soon became the big friend group that we made along the trip. With 40 other people in a classroom in my high school, the chance to be all friends with my peers was something very new to me. All from different origins, with different humors and different interests, but nonetheless we bonded in a unique way. Not only did I get to know these people, but they also taught me new things. But I did not just learn through these other people. My tests came in the form of my experience. Within exploring the historical sites of each country, everything became more clear. This experience was most poignant in our visit to Dachau. It was raw, vivid, and real. Never had I directly grappled with the experience of others in a way that I had that day. It is easy to say you understand or that you can imagine what people go through, but that mournful day, I learnt that simply knowing is never enough. I truly understood my humanity at that point, the power of feeling what others are. This power is empathy, and upon seeing its brutal absence, I became aware of its necessity. This appeal to my emotions connected me to another narrative beyond my own. However, beyond the real lessons, the biggest challenge I endured was grappling within myself. My identity, efforts, and motivations were distorted upon departing from my regular routine. I spent many long nights attempting to fit in just a bit more into all of my work. In my pursuit of excellence, I lost countless hours of sleep and part of my confidence. Upon attempting these new kinds of assignments, I was met with some difficulty and disillusionment. In response, I felt a bit resentful and upset, but realizing the futility of such, I became introspective. I approached work from this new perspective, other than my own, and found academic success. Beyond that, living through that stress and that experience of learning something new, I felt more aware. In expanding my perspective, I was able to make myself adaptable to all the experiences I had endured. Now, my road back home to my regular life was a symbolic and literal challenge, worst flight of my life. I battled with discomfort, argued with my seatmate, and puked from the fragrant body odor and food to my left. However, upon my arrival, it felt quiet. The hustle and bustle I had come to know and lived through for the past month had all of a sudden come to a stop. In that car ride home, tears formed thinking about how I would miss the strenuous routines, slip and falls upon the mountaintops, casual banter I had with my teachers, and most importantly, the connections I made between myself, people, and who I really was. Sure, most of my classmates live in Calgary, and I can do this work on my own, but in realizing it would never be the same as it had, I felt ambivalent once again. But I am confident about one thing. I am a new person. My experience has taught me more lessons than I would have otherwise learned. It was more than just the history lectures or the comments on my assignments. I still have disdain for the group projects, but I have learned its importance. I balanced grind with self-care and learned the many cultures of the world beyond a textbook. But most importantly, I knew who I'd become. I felt I knew more, not just from information, but because I could view a new perspective. All because of everything I had experienced between other people, where I had been, and within struggling with myself.